My name's Eli. I'm 34, and if I'm honest, I've spent most of my life being invisible in my own family. Not hated, not loved, just tolerated. The responsible one. The guy who remembered birthdays, paid his bills on time, showed up early to every family gathering, and somehow still never got a real seat at the table. Meanwhile, my younger brother Mason. He was the star. Charismatic, reckless, always in some kind of trouble, and yet adored like he could do no wrong. When he dropped out of college, my parents defended him. When he lost jobs left and right, they called him misunderstood. When he moved back home at 28, they welcomed him like a hero returning from war. Me. I put myself through school, worked at the same company for over a decade, even sent money to help with my parents' mortgage when Dad's hours got cut. But those things never made me the golden child. At best, I was background support, the guy funding the family's stability while Mason kept his crown. It didn't bother me. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I smiled at the jokes at my expense. Eli, you're too serious. Eli, you probably have spreadsheets for fun. Oh, we figured you'd be working, you never come around. I kept my head down, showed up, and hoped that one day, someone might notice. That illusion shattered last fall. It started with a phone call from my mom. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the tone she only used when she wanted something. Eli, sweetheart, she said, we'd love it if you could make it to Mason and Brooke's engagement dinner. It's going to be such a special night. Of course, I answered, without hesitation. Just send me the details. A pause. Then she lowered her voice. And, if it's not too much trouble, we were hoping you might help with the reservation. Just to hold it. We'll pay you back. I should have known right then that we'll pay you back meant I'd never see a dime. But, like always, I agreed. I booked a private rooftop space for 20 people. Put down my card for the deposit. Told myself it was Mason's big night, and maybe this time, maybe, I'd finally feel like I belonged. The night of the dinner, I arrived sharp at 7. Navy suit, polished shoes, a bottle of champagne in hand. I even had a custom card made with their initials. I stepped into the rooftop glow of string lights, floral centerpieces, and soft jazz, and for a second, I let myself believe. Until I saw my seat. Not at the table. Not with family. But a fold-out chair, tucked near a trash bin. And Mason, grinning smugly as he pointed it out. Sorry, this table's for family only. But there's a spot for you over there. The laughter that followed burned hotter than the city lights behind them. For a moment, I thought Mason was joking. I waited for the punchline, for him to clap me on the shoulder and pull up a chair at the table. But no one moved. Mom gave me that tight, frozen smile she always used when she didn't want to get involved. Dad chuckled nervously and raised his glass, pretending not to notice the humiliation. Brooke didn't even look up. And then, like a cruel chorus, a few of their friends actually laughed. I stood there, my throat locked, my ears burning. It was like being 13 again, left out of a cousin's wedding photo because I didn't fit the aesthetic. I felt small. Smaller than I had in years. So, I walked to the chair. I set the champagne down on the floor beside me. I didn't take off my coat. I just sat, alone, with a perfect view of the table I wasn't welcome at. The waiter came by. Are you with the party, sir? I nodded silently. He gave me a glass of water and walked away. Not even a menu. And for the next 2 hours, I sat there while they laughed, toasted, and passed plates I never touched. I watched Mason make a big speech about being surrounded by his closest family and friends. I watched Mom wipe tears when Brooke called her the best mother-in-law a girl could ask for. I watched the dessert come out, glittering with edible gold flakes, and not one single person thought to offer me a slice. It was almost funny, in a cruel way. I had paid the deposit for this whole night, and yet I was treated like the hired help. Then, the check arrived. The waiter approached the table first, holding the little leather folder, but Mason stopped him. "Oh, Eli's got it," he said casually, not even glancing my way. The waiter froze, glanced at the card on file, then walked toward me. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly. "The total comes to $3,218. Should I run the same card for the final amount?" Every head at the table turned to me. Mason smirked. Dad adjusted his tie. Mom's expression tightened. Brooke's father frowned. And in that moment, something in me, something I had been suppressing for years, finally snapped. I smiled. A slow, calm smile. "Not my table," I said clearly, my voice steady enough to slice through the noise. Silence fell like glass shattering. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than the skyline behind us. Mason's smirk faltered, twisting into confusion. Mom's eyes darted between me and the check, trying to calculate how quickly she could smooth this over. Dad shifted uncomfortably, gripping his glass like it was a lifeline. Brooke's father raised a sharp eyebrow, clearly realizing something ugly had been hiding under the surface all evening. The waiter hesitated. "But sir, you made the reservation." "I did." I cut in, nodding. "And I paid the deposit. But I wasn't welcome at that table." I gestured toward the trash bin beside me. "This is where I belong, remember?" The silence deepened. The jazz band in the corner even seemed to falter, their notes turning into an awkward hum. For the first time in years, I wasn't swallowing my words. I wasn't laughing it off. I was standing in it, making them hear me. "Eli," Mom finally said, her voice sharp with that performative patience she used whenever she wanted to paint me as unreasonable. "Don't be dramatic. It was just a joke." I almost laughed. A joke. That was always the excuse. The seat by the trash can? A joke. The endless little digs about me being too serious? Jokes. My entire life reduced to the family punchline. "No," I said evenly. "It wasn't a joke. It never is. You only call it that when you're caught." Mason leaned back in his chair, his smugness creeping back. "Lighten up, man. You're overreacting." But Brooke's father, who had been mostly silent all evening, leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "You invited him here," he said to Mason, his voice carrying weight. "And you sat him next to the trash?" Mason's grin faltered again. He looked to Mom for backup, but she just gave that same brittle smile. "Eli's sensitive," she said quickly. "He always has been." Sensitive. That word. The one they'd used my whole life to dismiss me. Sensitive when I asked why Mason got away with everything. Sensitive when I noticed the jokes cut too deep. Sensitive when I paid their bills but never earned their respect. For the first time, I didn't flinch at it. I didn't swallow it. I let it sit in the air, ugly and small, and I looked my mother in the eye. "No," I said softly. "Not sensitive. Just done." You could hear a fork drop. The weight of my words seemed to stun the room. Dad tried to laugh it off, though his chuckle came out strained. "Come on, Eli. Don't make a scene. It's Mason's night." I turned toward him slowly. "You're right. It is Mason's night. It's always Mason's night. And somehow, I'm the one who keeps footing the bill." That landed. Brooke finally looked up from her champagne glass, confusion flickering across her face. She hadn't expected the evening to take this turn. Neither had anyone else. The waiter still stood awkwardly, the leather folder in his hands like a ticking bomb. Mason snatched it from him, slapped it shut, and pushed it back across the table. "We'll figure it out," he muttered, glaring at me as if I'd ruined everything. But I wasn't done. Not this time. I stood, slowly, deliberately, and slipped on my coat. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I wasn't welcome. So I won't be paying. Mason's face twisted. "Jesus, Eli, it was a joke. You're acting like a..." "Like what?" I cut him off, my tone sharp enough to slice through his words. "Like someone who's tired of being treated like a wallet instead of a brother?" The silence deepened, but this time it wasn't awkward, it was heavy, real. Everyone at that table knew exactly what I meant. Brooke's father cleared his throat. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice low and direct. "You had him pay for this dinner?" Mason sputtered, looking to Mom again. She reached for her glass, avoiding his eyes, as if her silence would make the truth vanish. I grabbed the bottle of champagne I'd brought, the one still unopened, sitting on the floor by my chair, and tucked it under my arm. "Enjoy the rest of your night," I said quietly. "This one's on you." And with that, I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, voices rose. Mason's sharp, Mom's pleading, Dad's muttering attempts to calm things down. But none of them followed. None of them stopped me. The city air hit my face as I stepped outside, cool and sharp. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. But the fallout hadn't even started yet. The rooftop doors shut behind me, muffling the chaos inside, but the tension clung to me like smoke. I walked down the street, each step sharper than the last, the champagne bottle still tucked under my arm like some ironic trophy. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like the black sheep or the overreacting, sensitive one. I felt free. My phone buzzed before I even reached the corner. "Mom." I ignored it. Buzzed again. Dad this time. Ignored. Then Mason. The text preview flashed on my screen. "Nice stunt, bro, real mature." I slid the phone back into my pocket without opening it. By the time I got home, there were 5 missed calls and a flurry of texts waiting. Mom's messages were dripping with guilt trips. "You embarrassed us in front of Brooke's family. You know Mason was joking. Why ruin the night? You've always been so dramatic." Then one final line that made my jaw tighten. "Family takes care of each other." Family. That word again. It hit me harder than Mason's smug grin ever could. Because in that moment, I realized, it wasn't that they didn't see me. It was that they didn't want to. The next morning, I turned off my phone completely. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like their safety net. I didn't feel like I owed them anything. But cutting ties, even just for a day, left an ache I hadn't expected. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the table, and stared at the unopened champagne bottle. My gift for Mason. Still wrapped in gold foil, untouched, unwanted, just like me. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself, what if I just walked away? Not for a night. Not for a week. But for good. The thought scared me. But it also thrilled me. The longer I sat with that thought, the clearer it became. Walking away wasn't betrayal. It was survival. 4 years, I'd been their invisible backbone, the one who kept things running while Mason crashed through life like a wrecking ball. And what did I get? A folding chair by the trash. A bill I was expected to cover. A lifetime of jokes at my expense. That night, I opened my laptop and started making changes. Automatic transfers to my parents' mortgage? Cancelled. The credit card I'd put down for emergencies when Mason overdrafted his account again? Removed. Their family group chat? Muted. It felt like cutting ropes that had been strangling me for years. 2 days passed. Silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd gotten the message. But then my phone lit up again. Dad this time, his words cold and transactional, as if nothing had happened. The utilities are due. Can you cover this month? I stared at the message for a long moment, almost amused. Not a word about the dinner. No apology. Just straight back to business, like I was their personal ATM. I typed back, calm and deliberate. Not my problem. Ask Mason. It took less than 5 minutes for the fallout to begin. Mom called, twice. Then a string of texts. Don't do this. You're part of this family whether you like it or not. We need you. I almost laughed at that last one. We need you. Not we love you. Not we're sorry. Just we need you. And then, finally, a message from Mason himself. Dude, stop being a drama queen. It's not that deep. Just help them out like you always do. I sat back in my chair, shaking my head. Mason still didn't get it. None of them did. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as insurance. And for the first time, I wasn't going to play that role anymore. Mason's text burned in my mind. It's not that deep. Not that deep. Years of being the afterthought. Years of funding their comfort while being treated like an outsider. Years of swallowing the humiliation, telling myself it wasn't worth making a fuss. And now, when I finally stood up for myself, I was a drama queen. I typed back, my fingers steady. You're right. It's not that deep. Because I'm done. Almost instantly, the typing bubbles popped up. Then his reply. LOL, okay. You'll come crawling back when you cool off. But I didn't cool off. I got sharper. That evening, I got another call, this time from Mom. I let it ring out, but her voicemail landed like a dagger. Eli, please, don't be like this. Family takes care of each other. We raised you, we gave you everything, and now you're abandoning us when we need you most. I sat there in my dark apartment, listening to her words, and felt something inside me finally click. They weren't asking me to be part of the family. They were asking me to finance the family. That wasn't love. That wasn't respect. That was exploitation dressed up in guilt. I opened a new message and sent it to both of them. You made it clear I wasn't family when you sat me by the trash. When you laughed. When you left me out. You don't get to claim me now. Mason can take care of you. For a long while, there was silence. Then, one final message from Dad. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Don't bother coming around anymore. I read it twice, then a slow smile crept across my face. 4 years, I'd been begging for a seat at their table. And now, finally, they'd pushed me away completely. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was also liberating. Because maybe I didn't need their table at all. The night Dad told me not to bother coming around anymore, I sat in the silence of my apartment, waiting for the guilt to come. It never did. Instead, I felt lighter. For the first time in my life, there were no strings pulling me back, No invisible debts I was supposed to pay just to earn scraps of acknowledgement. The next morning, I woke up early and did something I hadn't done in years. I made plans for myself. Not for Mason. Not for Mom and Dad. For me. I booked a weekend trip out of town. Just a small coastal city, nothing extravagant, but it felt like rebellion to spend money on my happiness instead of pouring it into their endless pit of needs. Walking along the pier that Saturday, I realized how much of my life I had missed out on. I'd been so busy funding theirs that I'd forgotten to live mine. And while I breathed in the salt air and watched the waves crash against the docks, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Brooke, Mason's fiancée. "Eli, I just want you to know. I had no idea they treated you like that. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, stunned. She had barely looked at me that night, hadn't lifted a finger while Mason humiliated me, but now she was reaching out. Before I could decide how to respond, another message came through. "You were right to walk away. Mason won't admit it, but he crossed a line. My father hasn't stopped talking about what happened." A small, bitter laugh escaped my throat. Mason, the golden boy, finally being called out by someone he couldn't manipulate. I typed back, short and simple. "Thanks. But it's too late." Then I put the phone away and leaned against the railing, the ocean stretching wide and endless before me. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking at my life through their expectations. I was looking at it through my own. And that terrified me, because it meant I had no excuses left. When I got back from that trip, my phone was waiting with a storm of messages. Not from Mason this time, he'd gone silent, but from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Apparently word of the trash chair incident, as one cousin called it, had started spreading. Brooke's father, furious about how I'd been treated, had told people. And once the story escaped the rooftop dinner, it grew legs fast. An aunt texted me, "Eli, is it true they made you sit by the garbage at Mason's engagement dinner? After you paid for it?" Another wrote, "I always knew they played favorites, but this, wow." For years, I'd been the quiet one. The overlooked one. The easy target. But now, for the first time, people were actually seeing it for what it was. And Mason hated it. Late one night, his name lit up my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Happy." He snapped the moment I picked up. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated Mom and Dad. Brooke's father thinks I'm some kind of monster now." I stayed quiet, letting him vent. "You couldn't just sit there, could you?" he continued, his voice sharp with resentment. "You had to make a scene, ruin everything, like you always do." Something inside me broke open then. Not with anger, but with clarity. "Ruin everything?" I repeated softly. "Mason, I've spent my whole life sitting there. Quiet. Paying. Smiling while you made me the joke. And the one time I stand up for myself, that's what ruins everything." He didn't respond. Just heavy breathing on the other end of the line. "I'm done, Mason," I said finally. "You can keep being the star. You can keep Mom and Dad's approval. You can keep the spotlight. But you don't get me anymore." And before he could spit out another excuse, I hung up. The next day, I blocked his number. Blocking Mason was the cleanest cut I'd ever made in my life. No back and forth, no half-hearted reconciliation attempts, no late-night guilt texts. Just silence. And that silence became my freedom. At first, Mom tried. A few more messages trickled in. "We just want the family back together. You're being stubborn. You'll regret this one day." But then even she stopped. And for the first time, I understood what it meant to have peace. I started spending my evenings differently. Instead of driving across town to fix Dad's gutters or wiring money into their account, I picked up hobbies I'd always put off. I joined a local running group. I traveled on weekends without asking anyone's permission. I even began sketching again, something I hadn't done since high school because Mason used to mock me for it. Each small act felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that things weren't going smoothly for Mason. Brooke's father had pulled financial support after the engagement dinner fiasco, and Mason's job prospects weren't exactly steady. For once, my parents couldn't cover for him, and they had no backup plan now that I was gone. A cousin asked me if I felt vindicated. I thought about it for a long moment before shaking my head. No, I said. I just feel free. Because the truth was, my breaking point wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making them see me. It was about finally seeing myself. I'd spent years waiting for a seat at their table. But the night they sat me by the trash was the night I realized I didn't need their table at all. And walking away was the best decision I ever made.